All right, boys and girls, welcome back to our Frindle Read Aloud. Now, this is very exciting because today, this is our final online read aloud together. We're just going to get started right away. I'm going to start where we left off in the previous chapter because it was pretty long. But your response today for chapter 13 is, even though Mrs. Granger didn't keep students after school anymore, how did she fight the word on her spelling tests? And explain with about 3 sentences. Let's finish strong with some high quality fourth grade answers. So, thinking about even though the kids don't stay after school, how is Mrs. Granger's fighting that word on her spelling test? What is she doing in her class? Okay, so starting where we left off in the last video. Instantly, Bud saw how to get what he wanted. Well, Tom, I'm afraid it's not really going to go away. Looks like something started up. People are real interested. You probably saw those bright red ballpoints around town with the word Frindle on 'em. That was my doing. Just testing the waters. But your boy, he owns that word. I got my lawyer to apply for a trademark a few weeks back because that's just the way I am. New thing comes along, I like to be right there in the middle of it. He grinned at Tom Allen, and Tom smiled back weakly. And remember, Tom Allen is Nick's father. Right, now I got a shirt printer in Massachusetts, and another one in Chicago, and another one in Los Angeles, making t-shirts with the word Frindle above a picture of a pen. I mean, a Frindle. Each supplier has orders so far for over 20,000 shirts. Profit on every one of those is going to be $2, maybe $3. And I'm talking with some big pen and pencil companies in Hong Kong and Japan about a deal that could be worth some really big money. They've seen this Frindle thing in the media, and they want to buy the rights to the trademark and make a new line of Frindles for kids. I'm not kidding. This is a hot, hot idea. Bud guessed right. Just the thought of all this made Tom shrink back uncomfortably in his chair. It was way too much fuss. Tom, let me be direct with you. As the boy's guardian, you need to do the right thing about all this. I'd like to see where all this is going to go. I'm going to take some risks, spend some money, and see what happens. But I need your permission. I need your signature on these trademark papers, and I need to strike a deal with you about permission to use that trademark. I know it seems like a big ruckus about a word, but we just can't tell what's to come of it unless we take some steps. Bud pointed at the papers on his desk. That's a contract, and it's fair and honest. It gives your boy 30% of whatever profits I might make. That's a fair royalty, generous for this kind of deal. So, what do you say? Makes sense? Let me take care of all the fuss and see if some good doesn't maybe come of it all. The papers and a pen were sitting there on the desk next to Tom. He looked at Bud, then reached over, picked up the pen, and signed both copies of the trademark papers and 3 copies of the contract. I've got no reason to doubt you one bit, Bud, and I sure don't want to mess with any of this myself. Is that it? He asked, standing up. Not quite, Tom. Here. Then Bud Lawrence handed Nick's dad a check for $2,250. What's this for? That's what I owe Nick for the sales of the Frindles from the first 3 weeks, explained Bud with a smile. Tom looked at the check and said, This is terrific, Bud, I'm really glad about it because I'm sure it'll help with Nick's college, but I wish you'd just keep this between us. If Nick knew, he'd probably stop mowing lawns and I'd never get him to save another penny. So just between us, okay? Bud said, Sure, Tom, I understand. Just between us, and they shook hands. Mr. Allen left Bud's office and walked across the street to the savings bank. He set up a trust account for Nick, and the bank manager said he could make arrangements with Mr. Lawrence so any other money would be deposited automatically. That sounded good to Tom Allen. If he never heard another word about it, that would be fine. As Nick's dad walked slowly back to the hardware store, he wondered if things were ever going to be the same again in his quiet little town. Okay, here we are now, chapter 13, Ripples. So keep an ear out listening for how Mrs. Granger does her spelling tests. Chapter 13, Ripples. But life did settle back to normal in Westfield. More leaves fell, Thanksgiving came, then the first snow, then Christmas and more snow. Fall and winter seemed to calm everything down and drive everyone into their own houses. Things were calmer at Lincoln Elementary School too. Frindle mania was over, but that didn't mean the word was gone. Not at all. All the kids and even some of the teachers used the new word. At first it was on purpose. Then it became a habit, and by the middle of February, Frindle was just a word like door or tree or hat. People in Westfield barely noticed it anymore. But in the rest of the country, things were hopping. Frindle was on the move. In hundreds of little towns and big cities from coast to coast, kids were using the new word, and parents and teachers were trying to stop it. What had happened in Westfield happened over and over and over again. Bud Lawrence couldn't have been happier. There were Frindle shirts and sunglasses and erasers and notebooks and paper and dozens of other items. The new line of Frindles imported from Japan were a big hit, and now there was talk of selling them in Japan and Europe as well. The checks that went into Nick's trust fund got bigger and bigger. Bud opened his own factory in Westfield to make Frindle baseball caps, which created jobs for 22 people. And in March, the town council voted to put up a little sign on the post below the town's name along Route 302. It said, "Home of the original Frindle." And Mrs. Granger? She seemed to have given up, or perhaps she had been ordered to. No one knew. Her poster about the forbidden word had quietly disappeared from the bulletin board, and kids were not staying after school writing sentences anymore. It was business as usual, except for one thing. Oh, and there's the Westfield sign. Oh, there we go. Home of the original Frindle, right there on the town sign. Pretty big deal. Okay, here's the part about spelling tests. Everyone in fifth grade got at least one word wrong on his or her spelling test each week. Every week, the first word at the top of Mrs. Granger's list was pen, and every Friday during the spelling test, every kid spelled it Frindle. Nick was sort of a celebrity for a while. Everyone had seen him on The Late Show and on Good Morning America, and 2 or 3 other TV shows. John and Chris and all his friends kept asking about what it was like to ride in a limousine. After a week or two, though it was old news and everyone seemed to forget it and move on, the only person who couldn't quite forget about everything was Nick. All right, and that is the end of chapter 13. So I hope you're looking forward to finishing it in school. And for today, just tell me about what Mrs. Granger does on those hard, difficult spelling tests. All right, have a great day.